I want to go over for safety's sake. Obviously your safety as well as the safety of the machine.
Now I will tell you, anything in the world can be fixed. There's nothing you can do to this machine that can't be fixed. But some of it will cost you some money, so let's avoid that. Let's not have you spend the money where you don't need to. And it's putting it up on the counter. I do this so you can see. So really be careful. If you're using it up on the counter and your hose is attached, invariably you'll be cleaning and it will fall. And then something will happen. I promise. Something. I don't know what, but you'll either crack the top or the bottom, or the tape will dislodge, or whatever. So just leave it kind of down where it's safe, and then if you need to reach up higher, add more of the extensions. And that way you won't have to pay for a repair bill. Again, it can be fixed, but it's better if it never happened in the first place.
Care of your electrical cord. This one has been pigtailed. It's kind of an interesting thing. I've noticed it's something that you either do or you don't do. So if you have cords like this at home, I'll teach you how not to do that. Anytime you have a real thick gauge cord, you need to twist it with each loop instead of just shoving it together. And then eventually when it pigtails to this point, these connections can kind of pull away. Winding your cord is easy if you get the loops just the right size. Remember to begin from the base end, not the free end. And the reason is, if you wind from the base end, each loop has time to undo that coil. So remember, we're going to twist with each loop rather than just shoving it together. We're going to let it have that coil stay in place. So each loop just gets a little bit bigger than the last, and it's nice and smooth. Nothing is twisted back the opposite direction. And then the plug in the center, this way when you close the door, you won't put any pressure on it and you won't pop these little hinges out. So about this size loops in the compartment all the way, and then the door will shut. The other thing is the plug. If you've got your plug in the wall, you want to pull it straight back out. These two prongs wiggle a little bit. This one is just stiff and straight, the ground plug, so you want to pull it in and out. If you kind of yank on it from an angle, chances are this will snap off in the wall. So to avoid that, just hold it from its base, pull it in and out straight. It can be fixed, but it's pretty avoidable. Another really good best practice is to shut the electrical switches off before you actually unplug it from the wall. So, you know, when you're shutting your computer down, you don't just disengage the electricity. You shut it down properly, and then you unplug the electrical source so that you don't mess with any of the electronics inside. When your hose is really hot, let's say you've been steaming for a while and there's been quite a bit of steam go through this inner tube, there's insulation so it won't burn you, but that tube's really hot, and anything that goes together can come apart. So there's this clamp inside here. It's pretty sturdy. It's by no means fragile, but when it's really hot, you'll want to avoid pulling hard on it. So if your machine's down here and you're pulling it along by the handle, chances are you're going to separate these two pieces. That's not something that's covered under warranty because it's real easy to avoid. The same on the other end. There are some clamps that hold this together. Since my machine's going to last me a good 15-20 years, I'm going to make sure that when I'm moving my machine, I'm not pulling this hose and pulling the machine with me. Take your machine to the sink and take that drain plug out and let all the water that's left over from last time you cleaned drain into the sink. And you're going to see some little minerals from your tap water. And as long as they're white and there aren't too many of them, you're draining it about as often as you need to. If they are black and there are so many of them that it's actually plugged up, that's not often enough. It's kind of like your lint trap in your dryer. Some of us clean it out with every load, and some of us kind of let it build. Same thing happens. If you let the minerals build, it's going to cause your machine to work harder than it needs to. How many of you have water softeners? And are they the salt water softener or reverse osmosis? The salt type take away the calcium, but they add the sodium. So there's still going to be some mineral in there. And as you compress all that water and distill it, you're going to get some solids. There's kind of a couple of schools of thought on how often you should clean your machine out, but I will tell you that every single tank full of water leaves some minerals behind.
So I'm going to leave it up to you how often is often enough. It's so simple. You just pull this drain plug out and let the water drip, and then put it back and fill it up. But do keep those minerals taken care of. I don't want to harp on you, but that's probably half the repairs we see are because they never cleaned out the solids. And so it's trying to work through all these solids and it can't heat, and pretty soon the pressure in there pulverizes them, they start to shoot through the valves, and you get problems. So it's an easy thing to avoid. Another thing, while we're looking at the caps and the drain plugs, each of them have a gasket right around this post. And it's just a little rubber gasket that takes up any extra pressure so that it's not metal on metal when the heat builds. So as you're putting your caps on, twist them on until they feel like they're catching, and then just about a quarter of a turn more. Not a big old crank it down really tight, because you'll just end up smashing these gaskets, both on the filler cap on the top and the drain plug on the bottom. There are the little gaskets. Did you? And you can replace the little gaskets. It's not a problem, but it's easy to avoid having. What I'd like to do tonight is make sure that you don't waste any money. Knowing how to take care of your machine will keep you from unnecessary repairs and replacements. My favorite for just a regular ironing board is to put the steamer base right here in the V.
And that's
So that it's right here in front of you. And then this cord has plenty of room to reach either end of the ironing board without pulling on it, stretching it. If you're stretching really far to the end of an ironing board because your machine is still in your cart and it's too far away from the end, it's possible to pull these things apart, especially when they're really hot. So my recommendation is where the steamer is there, and then you don't worry about that. You also don't rub the nylon across the edge as often as you do if it's sitting someplace inaccessible. We see sometimes after many years this nylon tends to kind of break. It's cosmetic, it's not going to hurt anything, but if it does start to pull away from either one of the connections, you'll want to come in and have that looked at.